And we're coming to you live.
We're live.
We're live.
We're on the air.
We're on the air.
Coastal radio.
Coast to coast.
Terrestrial radio.
Yes, sir.
AM airwaves.
AM airwaves.
The ones that always come in a little staticky.
Yeah. For some reason, there's always like a lot of super religious AM radio shows. For some reason, whatever.
You know, terrestrial radio really appeals to the middle American, the rural American.
Oh yeah.
Not a lot of access to other media outlets, I think.
Yeah, it really is lowest common denominator. I mean, who listens to the radio anymore? Let's be honest.
People on their morning commute.
I guess, yeah.
It's the classic morning commute. Listen. Turn on that radio. You
Yeah.
see that I have 2 drinks today?
I do see that, yeah.
It's just water and tea.
Yeah.
Usually I have multiple drinks, a sugary caffeinated one, and then water.
And multiple
because water is
alcoholic
life,
ones.
and then multiple. But I'm changing my life.
Yeah.
No more alcohol.
You found Jesus?
Or at least not as much.
You found Jesus?
Well, you know, I don't want to have to keep going back for treatment, you know.
Yeah,
I was in treatment. So, here's a little story I wanted to tell you. I wanted to talk about this one because it's kind of funny and it's kind of scary too, but I wanted to wait till it was resolved to talk about it.
Yeah, I remember you talking about this.
Yeah, so as you know, but people not listening probably don't know, I was in treatment for, you know, alcohol and substance abuse counseling through the month of May and June. And I was receiving coverage here and through Cover California. I had Kaiser, but something weird.
Did you have Cobra?
No, I just have Cover California.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
it provides me Kaiser.
Okay.
But because of that, something weird happened in the month of June where, like, through Cover California, I was, like, kicked off my insurance, but I didn't realize it until I was notified by Kaiser. Like, Kaiser just sent me, like, one letter in the mail that said, hey, you're no longer with Kaiser as of June 1st. And I was like, meanwhile, I've been getting lab tests, going to see a counselor, starting various treatments that, it racked me up a pretty big bill. It was about over $1,200.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why. And I was able, what first happened was I had to, like, re-establish my coverage in Cover California. Like, we had the bill there. Like, I sent a payment in. It got bounced back for no reason. I don't know who messed up, if it was Covered California or Kaiser themselves. But anyways, I didn't realize that this was a problem until, like, June 20th. So I got a big fatty medical bill sent to me for over $1,200 a few weeks ago, and I was kind of panicking because, you know, that's a pretty decent amount of money to just get a random bill in the mail. And, you know, I got bills all over the place. Maybe my my other story, my legal proceedings, I'll talk about after that's resolved too, because that's a funny one.
Yeah,
that's a funny one. But this one, I just wanted to say, I called them a couple weeks ago. They said they were gonna further it up the chain, and they opened up a case for me. There was an agent working on it. They said they'd get back to me. They didn't get back to me, but I guess like my mom, because my mom helps me with paying through Covered, and she got a letter on her email saying that, like, oh, like, everything was all good. And I guess, like, I went and I looked on my bill, because the bill was there on my Kaiser webpage, but I went and looked and it was at 0. I was like ready to settle it and just say, hey, I'll pay 10%, which is my copay. Right. I'll pay 10% of this bill tops. But I didn't have to pay any. 0. I barely had to do anything. They just scanned that shit, looked at it, so I won. I beat yet another force to be reckoned with. I've taken on student loans. I've taken on other loans. I've taken on the courts, the cities, the counties, and now the insurance companies. And I come out on top every time. I'm not paying, bitch.
Yeah, you know, I mean,
you have to fight me for this money.
It's a problem that's uniquely American, you know, worrying about your coverage and worrying about, you know, whether or not there's going to be lapses in your coverage.
It's almost a big enough headache where I'm like, fuck being insured. Fuck going to the doctor.
Yeah.
Screw it.
Yeah,
Whatever.
You know, that's why we should have universal Medicare. But
Single
payer.
Yeah, I agree. But, well, on the topic of healthcare, you want to talk a little bit about COVID? Something we haven't really broached on this show yet. Obviously it's hard to have.
Yeah,
you know,
I just don't like talking about it because the only thing is that like we've all been through it. We've all been through this like just terrible year. I'm just like, why fucking just continue to bring it up? I mean, but we're not
It
denying
wouldn't make
it.
the most fun listening, I don't think.
Right, but well, one reason why I
conversations
think
get old because like with COVID, I feel like we're just having the same conversations over and over again.
for sure, but some people just they're not. They're listening to quacks online and shit like that. Like there's that one guy. I forget the guy's name, but he's someone who's credited with creating the mRNA vaccine, helping create it, but in reality, he's like a disgraced doctor who like wrote a paper on it. But he's claiming that he helped.
Is this Andrew Wakefield?
No, that's the British. That's the British. Yeah, that's the guy that started it all. His name's
anti-vaccine.
I forget his name.
Before we continue with this, if we're gonna talk about vaccine, because as people probably heard, COVID with the Delta variant and the Epsilon variants and the Lambda and all the variants, whatever, they're spiking. There's spikes around the country yet again. It's gotten old. COVID's gotten old. It's like, come on, time to move on, COVID. And I think we're all just like, when is this shit gonna be done with?
So the guy's name is Dr. Robert Malone. Okay, but a lot of anti-vaxxers and shit like that are
bringing. Boy?
Yeah, they're bringing up.
That's their champion.
Yeah. Well, first off, we'll just bring up something that's close to me and Zach, Joe Rogan.
Before we get into vaccinations, there is something I want to make clear for the record. There is a difference between vaccine hesitancy and anti-vax.
Right.
Vaccine hesitancy, I think, is normal. I think everybody experienced that. I did.
When
I was nervous to go get it, It is, I think everybody experienced a little bit of anxiety about it. And it's normal to have vaccine hesitancy. The issue I think that we have a gripe with is the anti-vax stuff.
Right.
So one thing I have to say, is I don't think we're going to convince anybody, regardless of what we say. I don't think anybody can convince anybody of any anti-vaxxers. The vaccine hesitant people, I think the people that are on the fence can be swayed one way or another.
TFG, too far gone?
I think it's a little bit of like a sunken cost fallacy where they've just invested so much into it. Right. So much into the anti-vax stuff that to like reverse and go back on it now and say, oh, never mind, I think I was wrong. Like, it's just not in a human nature to want to do something like that. Yeah. So I honestly think the best course of action, at least when with combating anti-vaxxers, is to just straight up ignore them. I mean, it's a market. It commands a lot of attention. It's literally like a market almost. Online it commands so much attention. If you're in that bubble, you're only gonna get people agreeing with you. You're only gonna be seeing things you agree with due to the algorithms online and whatnot, and the bubbles people get trapped in online discourse. But I don't think that like there's much to be said to anti-vaxxers that's gonna give them an aha moment. Yeah. With people who are more or less on the fence and vaccine hesitant, I think those are the people that we should be reaching out more to in terms of like saying like like we got it, we're fine. Both me and you, we're not gonna speak for everybody, but everybody I know has gotten the vaccine has been fine. And sure, breakthrough cases are happening right now with the Delta variant. We both know people personally who've been vaccinated and tested positive for COVID. So
recently,
nothing is going to be a clean, smooth, perfect process, but I think that there is, some, light at the end of the COVID tunnel, and there is a solution here, and it's staring us right in the face. And to continue to argue about it and pretend like, like it's something more nefarious than what it is just doing us, the country, our communities, and everybody in the world a disservice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know some anti-vax people in my life. Where I work with, I work with a very at-risk community, so we got the vaccines early. And for me, I was a little hesitant, but it's like a cost-benefit analysis. You're like, all right, vaccines have been around forever. Fuck it, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, there's tons of people in my family that were vaccine hesitant. Even my mom, to this day, even though she's been vaccinated, still is like uncertain about it and is like, who knows?
Sure. And I think, I don't know, I'd be curious to see what happens once the FDA approval comes in, which should be coming in within the next couple of weeks from what I've been hearing.
If that'll convince a lot of people on the fence go ahead.
I think you're right. There's a lot of people who...
It's not going to convince the anti-vaxxers.
Yeah.
Nothing will ever be good enough.
But recently, what I wanted to bring up was Joe Rogan. Mm-hmm. He had on this guy from the Black Rifle Company.
Oh yeah, we watched that clip. What was his name? Ethan something.
Evan Hafer.
Evan Hafer.
Yeah. So basically, he's trying to be like the right wing Starbucks.
Yeah,
that's like his whole
look
thing.
At Starbucks and they think of it like. Oh my God! Some people in America are just so deeply entrenched in political bullshit that they're like, everything is like a liberal versus conservative battle for them.
No one cares. No one cares.
So Starbucks and coffee was like politicized for them.
Well,
so
because
but it was a smart move to go out there and see that there was like a market to be like, hey, you tired of that liberal pussy coffee? Try my Black Rifle coffee.
Well,
all proceeds go to the NRA and the military.
Well, we've talked about this many times before about how right wing leaning content is always just fucking lame. And it's
pandering. It's pandering.
Yeah, remember recently there was that one I showed you where it was like a children's book where it was like teaching the foils of communism and it's like, hey,
I still feel like that was a sad thing.
I no, it's real because it had a fucking page where you can buy the books and it's real, yeah. So Joe Rogan had this guy on, Evan Hafer, who also, worth noting that Kyle Rittenhouse, the guy who killed, I think he killed 2 protesters.
Yeah, it was like that kid that like drove out somewhere. I don't know.
Kenosha.
He had some vigilante
it was during the
something.
BLM riots.
Yeah, he had some vigilante streak in him or whatever. Just being a stupid kid and went out there thinking he could have. It probably seemed fun to him. I mean, when the protests were happening last summer. Like, we went out there, and I think both me and you felt the same. We're like, this is going to be kind of fun. Like, there's a little bit of,
why not?
So, some kid, I can understand,
Well, but he was anti the protests, He was, more recently, actually, I don't know if you saw this, but there was a guy in Oregon, which is a notorious, which people don't like to think about, but Oregon has a history of white nationalism and just very racist people.
It's the eastern part of it. So I've heard the highest concentration of white nationalists exist in the northeastern, southeastern, northern parts of the northern part of Idaho, the southeastern part of Washington, and the northeastern part of Oregon, in that little space up there, which is technically still part of the Pacific Northwest,
right?
But like further from the coast, more east from the coast, has the highest concentration of white nationalists in the country.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a guy who was he was like walking around. I think it was Portland. I'm not 100% sure, but he was walking around with an AR rifle, but it was like an airsoft rifle, and he was like walking around basically cosplaying. A lot of these like super right-wing militant dudes, I feel like that's what they're doing. It's just they just want to cosplay as like,
he's vigilante.
Yeah. And so this guy, Kyle Rittenhouse was apparently a big supporter of Black Rifle Coffee, and I think they even acknowledged him too. But then after what happened, they distanced
I was
himself.
reading up about him after watching that clip, and the company had to disavow anti-Semites because they attracted a large anti-Semitic crowd, as you do.
As you do.
A large.
One does not meddle in right-wing conspiracy without bringing in the Jews.
You play the game. You pander to this group. You're gonna attract the neo-Nazis, the white nationalists. Yeah. And so they had to disavow all these anti-Semites that were
probably bummed them out.
And white nationalists that started buying their stuff just to be a little bit more marketable, I guess.
Yeah. And so Joe Rogan, he has this guy on, and basically Joe Rogan. See, here's the thing. One of the things I do like about him is that Joe Rogan acknowledges his stupidity, right? That's one of the things that endeared me to him in the first place. And just as a background, me and Zach have been listening to Joe Rogan for 10 years since the beginning, and we've had a lot of different feelings
He
about.
was more fun back in the day.
Way more fun.
Now he just kind of appeals to like meatheads. And I've heard, I only see his clips from time to time. I don't follow the show anymore, but I've heard people like online that reading discussions about his shows. People like legitimately are like, dude, Joe Rogan is like so stuck on COVID.
Yeah.
Like, he will not like. It was more fun when he just had like weird and random conversations with his comedian buddies and
exactly
random people, and now he's like lost in the sauce, having the CEO of Black Rifle Coffee.
Yeah, and having that fuckhead Dan Crenshaw on.
Oh,
he has that guy on, and and the Weinstein brothers, Eric and Brett. You probably heard about them before. Well, Eric Weinstein, he's like one of the guys pushing a lot of COVID disinformation. Had that guy Dr. Malone on a bunch of times. And yeah, so in this clip, he's just basically, he just sows some more, like no trust in the vaccine, but he's like, he tries to play this like both sides bullshit, which bothers me. Trying to be like, I trying to play. It seems like he's trying to play to his audience, which I think he knows is right wing now, and a lot of them are maybe anti-vax or whatever. And if you look,
comments on YouTube,
that's what I was gonna say.
On the Joe Rogan subreddit, it was a little bit more measured.
The Joe Rogan subreddit, they were more so just like, shit, like here we go. But there was still a lot of people in the comments going like, thanks Joe for giving a platform to the truth, brother. And it's like, it's only the truth when it fucking goes along with your fucking beliefs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and I'm sick and tired of these anti-vaxxers. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about this whole thing about like, we should try to appeal to anti-vaxxers. I'm like, no, you need to shame them and tell them that they're fucking stupid because they're the same people who, and literally will not think about what they put into their body any other time of the day, but then they all get all up in arms over the fucking vaccine.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I kind of disagree. I think I've already tried the, confront them tactic, and it didn't work out well.
No, I know it doesn't work.
So I think the better course of action now is to just ignore it. And like I said, just try and, in your personal life, just sway the people that are vaccine hesitant. Just be like, look, I got it. I'm fine. We're fine.
Just do
it. And as these surges are happening, they're happening in communities that are more prone to be unvaccinated, whether that's for political reasons or economic reasons, because there is an economic disparity too with the vaccine distributions. But like as these spike, this wave right now is fueled. Well, it's fueled because like last year during waves, the lockdown and various COVID guidelines were still in place. This year, a lot of that's been removed. And so, like, it's now, like, the vaccine's keeping it from being too bad now that those guidelines are not being followed as stringently. But, like, also, the unvaccinated now are, suffering due to these spikes.
Right.
Like, everybody in the hospitals, everything I've seen says majority of people in the hospitals are unvaccinated.
Right, and and like I said, I do agree with your sentiment though of not shaming the vaccine hesitant because that's an understandable emotion. But once you use whatever small platform you have, whether it's your social media friends or friends you have on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and
or
you
even
just
larger, like there's plenty of radio hosts. Did you hear about that guy in Florida?
Yeah, and he
I think
died.
that's what sparked our conversation about Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
It was a radio host who was a big anti-vaxxer who died of COVID.
Yeah.
And then, like, I think on his deathbed was like, yep, not a good choice. Should have gotten vaccinated.
Well, there was also the one that was someone in our group chat posted where it was the guy who just never got around to getting the vaccine, and he basically documents his slow death in the hospital and his slow decay to the point where he's like fucking he sounds like Darth Vader and fucking he's like please get the fucking vaccine. And so I don't really feel like people who are vaccine hesitant deserve shame, but the people who actively push anti-vax sentiments, I think yeah, we should just ignore them.
And it's
I think
a political front, really, at the end of the day,
yeah.
what it is. It's not based on anything reasonable or with much merit. You know, it's a political front, and it's an industry at this point because tons of people are plugged in on it online, and it draws a lot of attention. So, you know, at this point, it's just tragic to me that so many lives are going to be lost due to, you know, this weird a mixture of a political battle and misinformation, and a lot of people are going to lose their lives.
And you know,
and misinformation has been like the story, I think, of COVID, in my opinion. Looking back at it from the start till now, misinformation and political narratives and just bullshit. I think when looking back on COVID in years, I think that'll be a very telling story of how this pandemic got so bad. Is that misinformation and politics dominated compared to rationality and a more measured response. You know?
Yeah.
And we've seen it since the start, from Donald Trump shrugging responsibility all the way in March of 2020 till now, DeSantis shrugging responsibility now. As it spikes in his home state, Florida.
Well, and then also, have you heard, like, people talking about this fucking ivermectin bullshit? It's basically just, like, the new hydroxychloroquine, where they're trying to be like, oh, it's an alternative to COVID treatment, you know? And it's like a horse dewormer, I think is what it is.
Oh, my God. People are going to put that in their body over a vaccine? A horse dewormer?
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah, and it's
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's this whole thing
with choosing a horse dewormer over a vaccine.
Yeah,
my God, the blinders you have on.
But see the way that they
literally a horse. That's a horse reference.
Here we go. Ivermectin. It's an anti-parasite that can treat infections caused by roundworms, threadworms, and other parasites. Yeah. You just look at it. Farm supply stores are running short on a horse dewormer / pseudoscience COVID cure.
Oh man.
Yeah, and it's
misinformation. It's a plague. It's a plague in of itself among this pandemic.
So, recommend get vaccinated.
We got vaccinated. We're fine.
We're fine.
Most of our friends have been vaccinated. They're all fine. Most of our friends and family.
And if you're anti-vax, then disregard this, I guess.
Yeah, but like I said, we're not going to convince the anti-vaxxers. Our hope is just to reach out to those on the fence and, you know, talk to your doctor. We're not doctors. Talk to your doctor.
Talk to your doctor.
Like a commercial. Talk to your doctor.
Talk to your doctor. All right, what do you want, Pepe or Apple, Zach?
Let's do the Apple story.
All right. So this is going to be my corporate slam piece for the week. Gotta give the intro, as always. Sure. Slam a dam a ding a ding a dang dong. Dig a dig a dig a dang da ding da dang dong.
Drop that hammer.
Yeah, that was like a Red Hot Chili Peppers style. Nice. Oh, you got that? Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. I always thought it's silly, like in their music when they do shit like that. It's like it's just.
Remember how we were watching, kind of really off topic here. Remember how we were watching Woodstock '99 and Flea was butt naked on stage.
Yeah, you gotta respect him for that.
Red Hot Chili Peppers. Who legitimately likes it? Anyways, go
them and fucking Sublime. If you like them.
I got in a lot of hot water one time at a party when I stated what I thought were the three most overrated musical acts of all time. Kiss, which everybody was like, okay.
There's some Kiss songs I like, but I will agree with the fact
I said Tom Petty, and that was like,
okay, that one I disagree with. Tom Petty has some fucking hits,
and then Sublime, and then
Sublime, man. I agree with 100%.
I had people coming at me all night telling me that I was an idiot.
But you know, I used to like Sublime.
I just gave up on it. Well, they like with all those bands, of course, there's a couple songs here and there that are cool. Like my favorite Sublime song is the one Seed, but.
I like Garden Grove or the Date Rape cover. Yeah, I like that song. But anyway, so Apple.
All right.
So I'm slamming Apple this week. I guess you are by proxy.
Sure.
So one thing I just want to bring up is that a lot of Apple users for the longest time have touted this like complex security, because I've been a Droid guy myself. I know you are as well.
I've never had an Apple product minus the headphones. I love Apple headphones.
Yeah, well, you like the ones that are thick and they get in your ear. I like those ones too. Yeah.
I don't like any headphones that have those weird rubber ends on them.
Yeah, I understand. So So a lot of Apple users will tout the security, that's what a lot of people will shit on Android phones for. Like, oh, you get viruses on there, bro. I've had literally every iteration of Droid, and I've never had one virus. All right, that I can fucking tell.
Me either.
So Apple is rolling out changes that will come out later this year. It's called Neural Match, and it will alert a team of human reviewers if it believes illegal imagery to be detected, who would then contact law enforcement if the material can be verified. So what they did was they fed this algorithm over 200,000 images from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And messages that feature a lot of like child pornography or stuff like that. So that's what the measure is for, is to prevent the spread of child pornography, right? Mm-hmm. That's what they're using this for.
Child exploitative content.
Right. But here's the thing where I'm actually curious to hear your point of view on. So if parents opt in within, devices with users under 18 will scan incoming messages having to do with pornography. And a lot of the time, and if it detects it, it'll obscure and be like, are you sure that you want to see this? And then if you hit yes, then you click through, and then it will notify your parents who are connected on the same family network of iPhones that you looked at an explicit image. And
wait, if like someone sends it to you, or if you're just browsing the internet?
No, if someone sends it to you.
Who sends porn to each other?
Yeah, I know, it's weird. But I think it's like, like the sharing of nudes between, younger adults.
Oh, right? So like if... So if it's like, let's say, two 16-year-olds in high school, and they're exchanging nudes, exchanging nudes, it will flag that? I don't know yet, because this is something that they're planning to roll out. So we're just talking about this as just a measure, right, that they're taking. We don't know the implications of it because it hasn't been implemented yet. But this obviously caused a lot of outrage online. Yeah, that would be weird. Imagine, because like I think we've all sent nudes before. Sure. A lot of us, even underage. I did, and I've heard a lot of people say that, both men and women say that they sent nudes while under the age of 18.
But most likely to someone their own age.
Yeah, exactly. And you send it to someone your own age, and so would that put kids receiving these messages consentingly, teenagers, would that put them on like a watch list as child predators? Even?
I don't know. And but these are the questions that are raised. See, my point is that the way the government and companies, the way they enact very like authoritarian, measures as far as like, invasion of privacy and whatnot. The way they do it is they do it under the guise of something that's all socially acceptable, right? Yeah. You go like, oh, we're trying to stop the spread of...
It's a weird one to say, to argue about. Like, already talking about this, I'm like, oh man, no.
Yeah, I know.
Don't make it sound like we're...
Yeah, no. We'll say it right now, of course, we're all for it, because basically it's just, if they have it on their actual local devices, it'll alert police. It will disable the account and alert the police, which that's a good thing. But that's how they always use to get power, right? Is they do it under something that you would be a fool for disagreeing with, and then they use that as a way to inch in on your privacy, right? And that's just something that's that's as old as the internet, and as far as being spied on, I think it sends a real dangerous precedent, because it gives Apple a back door into everyone's phone that was probably most likely already there, let's be honest.
Yeah, well, I've heard that a big reason that this has become somewhat controversial is that Apple was touting their privacy of their recent iPhones.
Right.
And I actually heard someone talking, they weren't talking about this issue in particular, this was something I saw a bit ago, but this person made this point that I thought was interesting, where he was like, the issue of tech is, it's swinging, the issue of privacy in tech is swinging the pendulum's swinging more towards in favor of the consumer and pro-privacy these days,
Right.
than it is swinging back to the tech companies, because Google's doing the same thing, making
Right.
a big show of like increasing privacy. They made a big show of like saying, hey, we're no longer allowing third-party tracking and cookies and
Right.
whatnot
Right.
on Google platforms and whatnot, and like Apple is doing the same thing with their privacy, but it's really just they have, it's for their marketing, because the pendulum's swinging in favor of the consumer. People are concerned about privacy online. These companies realize, if they're going to be there and doing market or doing business in this country, as the anxieties over privacies grow, and rightfully so, that they're going to have to give into that and meet that standard of privacy in order to still business.
I just think that we, this is a tough thing to talk about, right? It's tough to talk about because, like you said, who's gonna fucking be on board for protecting,
child predators?
Predators. No one.
Yeah.
Not us.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I know, not us. So the thing is, though, is that you extrapolate it. They'll use it against the worst among us first, and then they'll start to use it on everyone else.
Exactly.
Right. That's how the fucking Patriot Act started. They used it to
just terrorists, and the next
and
thing
then it's everybody.
It's
everybody.
A decade later, it's like, the NSA's been listening to all of us and our allies abroad too.
Yeah, Edward Snowden actually flagged this story. That's why.
Really?
That's why I saw it.
It's funny to make a little bit of a connection here to talking about COVID. When there's a little bit of a connection here, because COVID denialists and the anti-vaxxers will scream all day about 1984. That's their favorite book these days.
George Orwell, 1974.
It's their
George
favorite book these days, but they equate like COVID guidelines and vaccines to like a George Orwellian type, situation. But really, here's a legitimate Orwellian-esque issue, infringement of privacy by, the companies that control like devices that we have literally with us all the time.
Right.
And where are these COVID denialists and anti-vaxxers on that? They're, it's crickets over there.
Yeah, crickets. Yeah, it's only when it's
not a fun topic.
Yeah.
It's not a glitzy one. It's not fun. It doesn't get the views that the anti-vax and the COVID denialism get.
Funny enough, this kind of reminds me. So there's been, like a while back, maybe like about a month ago, Julian Assange's family went to Washington D.C. to try to plead to forgive.
He was in the news recently too, because the British government's trying really hard to just get the U.S. to drop it and allow him to come back to Britain, and the U.S. really wants really bad to extradite him here.
I know,
and charge him under the Espionage Act.
Yeah.
So,
but
let him go, free Assange.
But funny enough, under Trump, they were making a real hard push before he went out to pardon him as a slight to Hillary.
Yeah.
And a slight to the establishment Democrats. But of course Trump didn't do it because
I was waiting for that too on his like last week or so.
No.
I was like, is he gonna do it? Is he gonna pardon them?
He just forgave like a bunch of like horrible
he did
people.
Roger Stone.
Yeah.
He did his cronies. He doesn't actually care.
So
everything else is just posturing.
Yeah, and honestly, and it really sucks because people like Edward Snowden and Julian Assange, and more recently, I forget the name of the guy, but there was a drone whistleblower recently who got punished. Here, Vamp, while I look it up, one sec.
Well, in regards to this issue, I think online privacy or tech privacy is important. California, our own state, it gets laughed at in many ways, but it has probably the best privacy laws on the books, consumer privacy and personal privacy laws on the books, and it's one of those weird things where, people that might be in favor of these types of measures and policies will always be like, if you got nothing to hide, nothing to fear, which is like such an ominous statement. But really, it shouldn't have to come down to that. Like, we're entitled to our privacy. We're entitled to use our phones, our computers, which are vital tools to exist and communicate and do work in modern life. We're entitled to our freedom to privacy on those devices, and having these companies come in and kind of nibble at the bit. That's what they're doing. They're nibbling at it, trying to see, how far can we push it?
Yeah, it's like dipping your toe in.
Yeah, and you slowly start edging that door.
And then all of a sudden you're in the pool.
Yeah, and the next thing you know, like, they're looking at everything that you got coming through, and they started with something like, we're just looking for child pornography, and next thing you know, they're reading every message you got.
Yeah. So the guy's name was Daniel Hale. He was a man who basically he disclosed a lot that, the targets of drone strikes, 90% of the people who were killed in these drone strikes were not intended targets, so innocent civilians. He was just recently sentenced to 45 months in prison for violating the Espionage Act.
Yeah. This Espionage Act is a dangerous one.
It really is.
It is like basically a form of censoring vital government information from coming out to the public, you know?
Right.
And whether it's applied to Assange, who's not even a U.S. citizen, or this other guy, or
Snowden.
Yeah, people, can complain all day about censorship when someone gets deplatformed online, but here's a real, legitimate federal law that censors vital information about the government.
But instead, they'll just get upset that, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene was, like, banned for, like, 24 hours
and
off
she's
of
not
Twitter.
blowing the whistles on anything. She's just blowing racist dog whistles.
Yeah, exactly. So, everyone's looking at your shit. So,
they're going to try to, at least, if they aren't already.
Exactly. So last night, I was
the surveillance state.
Yep, it's a surveillance state.
Creating it. That's the real 1984.
George
Has nothing
Orwell.
to do with COVID or vaccines.
Yep.
It's privacy issues. And it's how it starts, at least.
Yep. And then all of a sudden, they're all the way up your butthole. So, I watched this documentary last...
Fuck that surveillance state.
Yeah, fuck it. So I watched this documentary last night because I was watching Hassan's stream while I was studying for the LSAT. Mm-hmm. I've been watching a lot of Twitch recently, especially Hassanabi's stream, but I've been kind of cruising around because, whatever. I'm just curious. It was not really a platform I used all that much,
When are we going to take this podcast to Twitch? Live stream it.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, we could.
It could be a fun experiment in the future. I'm not ready for that yet.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm not confident enough yet.
No, I'm not. So, I was watching Hassan's stream. They brought up just like this little video. I told you to watch it about Pepe the Frog, the Pepe meme. And then, so I saw that there was a documentary called "Feels Good Man," and it's all about this artist Matt Fury who created the Pepe the Frog. And he said one thing I thought was funny in the documentary is that when he was in a lawsuit with Alex Jones. And they were like, why did you name him Pepe the Frog? He's like, because it sounded like Pepe, and he's saying this in a deposition. It made me laugh really hard. So it's all about...
I think that's where the Feels Good Man thing came from.
Yeah.
The comic strips where
it was
peeing.
Yeah, the guy was peeing with his pants all the way down, and someone's like, hey, why are you doing that? And he's like, feels good, man. And, so... It talks about how this artist, he kind of like...
What's his name?
Matt Fury.
Okay.
Furie. And I recommend watching the Feels Good Man documentary. It's really good. It's a nice light watch. Not too, like depressing or anything. It's more so just like... It's cool to see him like take back his creation. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Seeing an artist take back his creation from probably some of the worst people in America, the alt-right.
Yeah.
So... Little backstory. Pepe the Frog comes from this comic series called The Boys Club, right? And it was just like about, it was like the way the artist described it is that it was like kind of like a reflection on the coming out of college phase of life, right? Where you're just kind of like aimless and wistful, it's like, no real direction where we're at right now.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. So, all of a sudden, Pepe started popping up on 4chan, right? And Pepe, what I thought was really cool in the documentary, what they brought up is that the Pepe meme that they used, whatever particular form of it, whether it's the sad Pepe or the smug Pepe or whatever, they all reflect the person posting it, right? And that's how it ultimately gets turned to evil. So
well, when I was watching this thing, I kept having this question. I was like, why did this become like such an iconic figure and like such a relatable figure? And I was like, there's just something about it, this anthropomorphic frog that is just like it's cute and it's like both also very identifiable.
Yeah.
And like I just feel like people felt like it was a whole like a hearty representation of their emotions and themselves.
Yeah, and to people who are very online, it's like a way to represent themselves, and and it's also easily drawn. It's easy to recreate, which is another reason that they bring up how it gets co-opted by the alt-right. Funny enough, when I'm like watching Hassan's stream, one of the things I like about it is that when you're looking at the chat, you'll just see like, a string of just like animated Pepes, like smoking a cigarette or, or like, it's a fun reaction. You get why you use it.
Yeah, I actually have a little bit of an anecdote about Pepe. So Pepe the Frog has been around for a decent amount of time. I remember first making jokes about the Feels Good Man stuff and Pepe the Frog back in high school with friends in high school, friends that hung out online a lot, and you would see it online, whether it was through 4chan or I must have first started seeing it around like, I don't remember exactly when, but I used to frequent the website Funny Junk, and man,
I remember that.
This website went downhill quickly. Like it was like before
it became iFunny, I think.
Before I moved on to like just going to Reddit more frequently or whatever, and like weirdly like the website had some weird shift somewhere in the early 2010s, and it all became like Pepe memes. But it became also like an offshoot of the poll board on 4chan, the politically incorrect. So it was all politically alt-right based, political Pepe memes. And I remember like one day I was like scrolling through and I'm like, man, what the fuck happened to this website? What the hell's going on with the goddamn Pepe the Frog and the Feels Good Man? And why is this all of a sudden all hella political and like far right at that too?
Yeah.
And that was like, I swear I was in high school when this was happening. So like predates a lot of like, the rise of Trump and everything that Pepe, kind of just somehow got co-opted in some way.
So something natural happened, right? It ended up being co-opted by these alt-right movements during the Trump run for his presidency that he ultimately won.
It was before this. That's the point.
Yeah, before. No, it was
years before.
No. It was before for sure, but it bubbled up to a fervor during the Trump campaign. So, and it was the start of the smug Pepe meme. And that's the one where people were like, it's what I'm talking about, where he has the thumb on the chin. Yeah. And so,
smug Pepe.
And that one became notorious for a lot of alt-right circles and stuff.
The ones I would see a lot on 4chan or Funny Junk or wherever, that like before it really became like a full-fledged right-wing thing, it would have like a Pepe drawn and like almost looked like he was dying, and he would have like a tank of something, like he would have
copium.
A mask on.
Yeah, well,
this was before the term copium, before the term copium.
Yeah.
He would like have a mask on and it'd be connected to a tank, feeding him like a breathing mask, feeding him like whatever the intention of the comic was supposed to be about, like a certain meme that was in the tank that it just kept feeding him, or a certain political ideology, or whatever, a certain message that he's just like, oh, it's in his oxygen tank and he's breathing it in.
Well, funny enough, that gets used against Trump supporters now as they'll put as copium, which I think is funny. And you cannot overdose on copium. Let me tell you, just ask Mike Pillow, right? That guy has OD'd on copium.
He's got the documents, though.
He's got the documents. So anyway,
he's a Pepe.
He's a Pepe. So the smug Pepe meme was during this rise. So then you started hearing about Kekistan and Kek. So Kek, I learned, is
From World of Warcraft.
Right, but there was also an Egyptian god named Kek, I guess, or something.
I've never heard of an Egyptian god.
Yeah, and so
it means LOL because
Right.
it's from World of Warcraft.
Right.
And it was when you see players from another side.
Yeah.
You can't see what they're typing, right? So it would just come up as gibberish. But when players on another side would type LOL, it would be seen by the opposition
I did not know that. That's
as
funny.
Kek.
That's
K-E-K.
funny. Well, that got co-opted as like the way for the. Also, another thing, iteration. I didn't realize it came from this, but so the whole thing. You'll see that a lot. It comes from a video of these frogs where they're screeching, right? And it sounds like a so that's how like the Pepe came about.
Yeah. Well, wasn't supposed to be like directed at like people that consider themselves autists?
Yeah.
Autistic people.
But I think even
and
they
themselves was like an autistic.
Yeah, I think even them themselves would admit that they're kind of like that. These alt-right people on 4chan. So it seemed like in the documentary, the way they would talk about it is that they wanted to meme Donald Trump into the presidency, right? That's what, as far as like on 4chan on these channels.
Well, that's what they claim. I mean, there's obviously is a lot more nuanced and
yeah, it's a lot more. Yeah, but
come on,
yeah,
they're gonna try and take credit for a presidential election. No. I would hear that too when Trump first got elected. I was like, come on, don't sit here and pretend like you guys. I mean, I'm sure it worked. I'm sure it was a major part of it.
Well, they actually had one guy who would talk. He was like an occult specialist, and he talks about like how like if a large group of people try to manifest something, that their collective power, you know what I mean, is quite interesting. Like there was one.
They're making a tulpa.
Yeah, and one thing that they brought up was like they wanted to see Hillary stumble, right? And then there was a video where she's like getting into a van where she stumbles, and they're like, "Oh my God, we did it!" Like, and they just, I just thought it was kind of funny, you know what I mean? They didn't obviously, but it's funny when there's like a whole group of people doing. And the weird thing about it too that I thought was cool is that they talked about like the whole thing of the Chan boards is that the most upvoted reach to the top, like any place, but like anything that doesn't.
It's actually the most discussed. There's no
the most discussed. Okay.
Yeah, because when you add a new comment onto a thread, it's bumped to the top of the page, and there's like 15 pages I think on every board.
Right.
And then something gets archived once it goes past.
Okay, so I did not know that. That's interesting. Okay, so what really gave him a lot of power, though, is when Hillary came out and declared Pepe a symbol of hate, right? And when you deem something as a hate symbol, it becomes
something, especially something as silly as
Pepe the Frog,
which is weird.
The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, they claimed it as a hate symbol, and at the end, it's kind of sad. You see, like,
Pepe became like they were using like Pepe as Hitler or like as a Nazi or like
and they try to do at first
I've seen plenty of images of Pepe dressed in like Gestapo gear.
Yeah, no, you can see it. So what they try to do to counteract this, the artist, he tried to do this thing where he tried to save the Save Pepe campaign, where he would try and make it a symbol of peace, where all these people would post like positive Pepes, and of course they all got turned into racist memes on the 4chan boards, But it was like he was trying at least to combat it, right? Because he hated the fact that something he created got bastardized and turned into something kind of gross and disgusting.
Yeah. Well, here's a question I have in regards to that. As much as I do understand his frustrations, I read something when I was in school called The Death of an Author by Roland Bartz. And it basically like poses question that once you author something, once an artist creates something, writes something or whatever and publishes it, sends it out to the world, like, is it still their creation or does it become
something on its own?
Well, does it become like whoever the audience is, does it become a creation of like, can the viewer take anything away that they want from it? Right. Basically, like if the author's original or the artist's original intent was something else, and then let's say like a certain viewer of it gleaned something else from it, does that make it not true because the artist originally intended something else, or is it true because it's really whatever the viewer's perspective is, the viewer's interpretation
I think
especially I think that's even more true in the case of publishing something online. When you put something online, I feel like your agency over it kind of goes out the window, especially if it becomes viral.
No, totally.
Like, it's going to be hard to control. It's like almost like it's no longer yours. It now belongs to the collective audience of it online or elsewhere.
So I think even this guy would agreed with you to a certain extent, because at first he was like, what am I gonna do? You know what I mean? Like,
I'd be a little proud of if I was him at first, to see one of my comics get so popular.
Yeah. So
maybe in all the wrong ways, but
yeah. So 4chan felt like okay, we already mentioned that. So he decided to kill Pepe in a comic.
Yeah.
They had the death of Pepe. Right, and because he was fed up. So
and all his other little anthropomorphic animal friends attended his funeral.
Yeah. So and then it takes a weird turn and it starts talking about these rare Pepes. Right? And it's basically it's apparently like a crypto / NFT scam. Not scam, but like a crypto / it's like a crypto thing where they collect these cards and they're called rare Pepes.
The term rare Pepe has existed long before NFTs.
Okay, but I'm talking about this. This is what it was online. Like, they even go to this point where this guy, he gets the most rare, one of the most highest valued rare Pepes, which is this Homer Pepe. Right.
I don't think that's what rare Pepe originally referred to.
Well, that's
it referred to, I think it was like a compliment to a good Pepe meme.
Okay. Well,
originally.
Later on.
Not positive on that. I tended to avoid this subsect of 4chan and this little.
So it goes on that that. I don't know why they brought that point up, but I think it's just to show that there's still a huge appreciation for Pepe, even though it's been maligned, right? Like, there was this whole community around collecting one-of-one Pepe cards. I'll show it to you later.
Okay.
I
believe this is more newer though.
And Pepe Cash. I don't know. It might be something newer, but it doesn't really say when it started. It just kind of brings it up randomly.
Okay.
Just thought it was funny to bring up. So Pepe became an entry point for radicalization for a lot of these people on the Chan boards, right? And so
get him with something goofy.
Yeah. And it honestly, it wore on the guy Matt emotionally, and it affected his mental health because even one of his buddies who's the guy Matt, just to give you a little just insight, the guy's a little bit of a kind of hippie-ish dude, a little bit crunchy. And his one of his roommates, he had a feels good man tattoo that was way before it became politically maligned, right? And people said and he just got it because it was his buddy and he liked the
they were probably proud that it went viral to an extent. That's cool.
Yeah,
to
and
have a comic or something, a piece of art you make become super popular like that,
and natural too. It wasn't we talk about that a lot, about people trying to force virality and something that naturally just comes aboard. That's something you created. That's cool. And the roommate, he said that he would go out after it'd been politically maligned, and people will just assume that he was a part of the alt-right or something like that, and he's just some crunchy hippie
That's
dude.
Unfortunate.
Yeah. So then it goes into the documentary goes into talking about A Suit with Alex Jones. Okay. So Alex Jones had this MAGA pride poster, right, where it had all these different faces. I couldn't even pick out most of the people, to be honest, but it had Trump and it had a Pepe on there, right? Because it was, Alex Jones, whatever.
And blanks there, I guess.
So what happened was there was this huge settlement between them, where actually the guy Matt Fury won and InfoWars had to pay him something, right? And then the attorney tried to play it out for Alex Jones. The attorney for him try to play it off and be like, it's one bad night at the strip club, and he's like, and then the guy Matt, it cuts to him, he's like, look, they were trying to play it off like it was a small settlement, but he's like, that's more than I ever made on this comic whatsoever. I just thought that was kind of interesting. And
so
also,
he won against Alex Jones.
Yeah, he won.
Got a settlement.
Well, so what happened is they talk about how he starts to work with this law firm that takes him on pro bono, and they like that. I think a lot of the times when lawyers take on shit pro bono, it's for the
cause,
the publicity, and one
publicity
of the
too.
Yeah, and one of the guys said, I thought this was kind of cool. He's like a chance to take on the all right. He's like, hell yeah. I kind of liked his spirit, the lawyer. So they copyrighted the Pepe meme, and then they just started going after all these notorious white supremacists who had co-opted his...
you ever seen the famous clip of that guy, Richard
Spencer getting knocked out? They showed it.
Someone asked him about, a reporter asked him about the Pepe pin, and he starts to explain, he's like, it's Pepe, he's kind of become a symbol, and right as he says that, he gets punched right in the face. Yeah, but I like to think that Pepe became a symbol of Nazis getting punched in the face.
Hell yeah. And you know what, that was, I had to rewind it a couple times because I love that clip. I just love seeing his smug face get punched in.
There is a funny remix of that. Sometimes people in the hardcore community will remix certain fight videos, funny ones, with hardcore songs. There's a funny one that had a good hardcore song, a ceremony song playing as that guy got punched in the face.
So him, the Daily Stormer, Baked Alaska. You've heard of that?
I've heard of the Daily Stormer.
Yeah. They got hit with a DMCA copyright.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's how he ended up taking it away from these. And one of the things that he said that motivated him to get this copyright over the Pepe meme and over, the Boys Club thing, was that there was this guy who was gonna, and the guy Matt Fury, he likes to make children's books, right?
Yeah.
And this guy was coming out with a children's book that was gonna use the Pepe the Frog, and a lot of it in there had a lot of Islamophobia in this children's book, and it was really disturbing, right? And basically, that's what motivated him to get the copyright.
I see.
And I'll leave you off on a little bit, and I think this is probably one of the cooler parts of this story is in regards to Hong Kong, and with the protests there, is after all of this, it shows him trying to convince the ADL to take it off as a symbol of hate, and they still go look, man, it's out of our hands at this point, and it's whatever. They kind of dismiss him, which I thought was kind of you feel bad for this crunchy hippie.
Feels bad, man.
It feels bad, man. So going to Hong Kong, naturally, it just became a meme within the protest that Pepe kind of represented them, the working...
Yeah, the pro-democracy protesters.
Right. And it was funny, you'd see them, people ask them about,
Which is a lot more cool and a lot more powerful than being a symbol for white nationalism.
Hell, of course. Hell yes. And I thought one of the things that was cool is someone was interviewing them all about it was really cool. You see people holding these little Pepe teddy bears, and they're wearing Pepe hats, and they're fighting for a just cause, and they're it was a way, the Pepe meme was a way for us all to connect and organize, which I thought was kind of cool, and that's how they leave off the documentary, and I was that was a cool note that they left off on. I like the fact that that it ends up turning into a movement for good.
Yeah, Pepe's still around to this day, and it's
on Twitch,
one of the main emojis that you see on Twitch chats.
Yeah,
and it's not necessarily as much associated with the alt-right or white nationalism as it might have been 5-6 years ago.
Right.
And
but I guarantee you there's a lot of people who are not as literate with the online culture who would still assume that it is a symbol of hate.
And as for the creator Matt, what was his name?
Matt Fury.
It's must have been a very frustrating situation for him, but if I was him, I'd be pretty proud that something I created became so universal, struck such a chord with people across the board, and basically became a form of online hieroglyphics. It's it speaks for itself. The
And-
Pepe
and-
face,
and the
like,
fact-
you could post it in all different manners, and it conveys so much emotion, and it does exactly what online hieroglyphics are supposed to do, and that's say a lot with just a little image, a little emoji of some kind,
Right.
a little whatever it might be. So I would be, if I was him, yeah, there's a lot of ups and downs with Pepe, but I would be proud that like it became such a massive part of the like online zeitgeist, and
it still is to
became
this
its own
day,
little form of
and
hieroglyphics.
people still love it so much to this day. Not despite it, but like as their own way. Because one of the thing I thought that was really profound that the guy said, he's like, Pepe is a mirror of the person posting it. Mm-hmm. And that's why I feel like it is so popular, is because
I mean, people across the board, like what I saw in that video, like there was Nicki Minaj posted like her version of a Pepe,
Right.
where it was like a Pepe twerking or something. I don't know.
And and it was funny, like when I was watching it in Hassan's stream, there's like a lot of people posting Pepe memes when they were watching that clip I showed you, and they were like, "It's me, it's a me," and it's like a cute little thing. It's fun, it's like it's
and
fun.
It's like universally identifiable too. Like
Right.
it really does. Like I don't know. So it speaks to people.
And many different creators will say that like it's like the face of Twitch viewers.
Yeah.
Is that's how they view, that's how they view Twitch viewers, as a bunch of little Pepe frogs. And I think that's cute. And I like that.
Sure. I will have a little bit of my own negative bashing perspective on this too. Yeah. I think it's also the result of harboring back to our conversation about the empty internet and the similarity. Like some part of me can't help but think that it's kind of like almost it's too common, and it's kind of become like it's a little bit like seeing people online like constantly repost is almost like it almost feels like it's become too commonplace that it's like, I don't know, that's become almost like it's lost a little bit of meaning. Okay. And that it's like it just feels like an army of bots spamming Pepe, I guess is how I view it these days.
And you know what? I think in maybe any other online format I would agree with you, but on Twitch it works. Mm-hmm. On Twitch it works because a lot of times the chat's so far moving, but when you see like a bunch of different Pepes with different emotions, like it's like it's a way for the Twitch chatter to express themselves. I think
just a bunch of bots to spam Pepe.
Sure, but I tend to look on the lighter side of it. All right, let's get into our shame segment. All right,
before we continue on, I gotta go.
Yeah, so I saw a tweet of yours that I liked the other day. You put something on that you said the only time you hear about governors is when something has gone really, really wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, I feel like in 2020, I learned the names of many governors. I mean, obviously I know the governor of my own state, but like 2020, I learned the names of so many governors I never heard of before.
Well, yeah, because a lot of them had to do with their response to COVID, like the Jim Justices.
Or Abbott, you hear about
Greg
him
Abbott.
when there's that ice storm in Texas.
You know what's a weird thing?
Year?
Did you know that guy's in a wheelchair?
Really?
He's in a wheelchair. Yeah.
Like, you only hear about a governor if a governor's doing their job right. You don't really hear too much about them.
No.
But if they're doing something wrong, you damn well will learn about that governor, even if it's not in your own state.
Especially a governor who has been on the air so much that he actually got an Emmy. That's right, folks. This week, we're going to shame Mr. Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Andrew Cuomo.
All right. Shame. 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 Shame on you. Okay. So we're shaming him this week because, so much bad stuff here. We'll cut into a little bit of his apology right here.
I've been making the same gesture in public all my life. I actually learned it from my mother and from my father. It is meant to convey warmth, nothing more. Indeed, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of photos of me using the exact same gesture. I do it with everyone, black and white, young and old, straight and LGBTQ, powerful people, friends, strangers, people who I meet on the street. After the event, the woman told the press that she took offense at the gesture. And for that, I apologize. Another woman stated that I kissed her on the forehead at our Christmas party and that I said, "Ciao, Bella." Now, I don't remember doing it, but I'm sure that I did. I do kiss people on the forehead. I do kiss people on the cheek. I do kiss people on the hand. I do embrace people. I do hug people, men and women. I do on occasion say, "Ciao, Bella." On occasion, I do slip and say sweetheart or darling or honey.
Yeah, so that was his apology. And the one thing I gather from this is that he talks about the very understandable part of the claims against him, which is I am Italian, I get all close sometimes, I'm sorry.
What is up with that?
Yeah, okay. That's one thing, because there's the argument that people will be like, oh, well, that's how older people would greet each other or whatever. Okay, let's just say you accept that argument, all right? He's using that, the more benign of the accusations, and not even covering the ones where he talks about where he straight up was grabbing a bunch of butts. Oh yeah, notorious butt grabber. Reached
Is that an Italian thing?
Hey, I like to grab some butt. Hey, grab some ace. So
what is it with like third generation Italians harping on the Italian thing so much?
They just
you tell me.
All right, I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you what it is. Is that it gets reinforced by media. It gets reinforced by Italiocentric media. The Godfather kinda, but then once you start going to the Goodfellas, you see like the mannerisms between people. You're like, yeah, that's me. Yeah, I'm this guy. I'm Tommy Two Shoes. Hey, I got two shoes on. That's why they call me Tommy Two Shoes. But I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's Sopranos, I think, was the death.
I mean, because I see it a lot. People who maybe their closest link to Italy is like a grandparents from Italy.
Yeah.
Will like harp on it like they were born in Naples or something.
My mom used to make the best reggaeton.
More so than any other like heritage in America, like Italian people will harp on it.
Yeah. It's really lame. But to be fair,
Love Italian food though.
The Irish kind of do it to a certain extent. Only really during St. Patrick's Day they'll be like, "Oh, I'm Irish." It's like, okay, all right. But yeah, Italians, they're notorious for doing this.
Italian Americans. Do people in Italy act like this?
No, they're probably a little bit more subdued. But Italian people are still over the top. Don't get that twisted. They're very animated people. But yeah, the Americanized ones, they don't really have an excuse to be like, "Hey, what's going on? Hey, boom, bing."
It's an act a little bit.
It's an
Come
act.
on,
It's
you're
an act.
complaining
You know what?
about country people talking.
No, I was
was
just about to bring that up. I was giving shit. Side tangent about people in California who put on like country accents and shit like that. I was railing on Zach about how I think that's so lame. So yeah, exactly. The Italian version of that, putting an Italian inflection on your stuff. Yeah, it's just the same level of corn. It really is. All right, but yeah, that's
Cuomo's defense.
Yeah, that's Cuomo's defense.
One of them.
He's like, hey.
That's one of his excuses.
Sometimes would I say "Ciao, Bella"? It's like one of the accusations.
Unironically saying "Ciao, Bella."
One of the accusations I heard is that as the boss, as the governor, the boss, he asked one of his underlings, "Oh, I'm so lonely. I need to be touched."
Ew.
Yeah. There's a lot of implications of it.
I'm just so lonely.
Hey, no. Hey, I'm so lonely. I just need to be touched. It's lame, and I think let's take it back. Why did Cuomo get so popular, right? Well, other than coming from
it was definitely during COVID.
It was during COVID.
A lot of governors got
a
lot of media airtime, warranted or not. It was especially governors of big states, be it Cuomo or Newsom here in California, or Abbott
so much so to the extent that we're gonna have a fucking recall election.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and
I mean, Cuomo's here saying that this is a political hit piece. This is a political attack on him. These are like serious, legit allegations. Newsom, I'm more likely to say it's a political attack. It's a political hit on him. They weaponized, COVID.
Look, do I have my problems with Newsom?
Of
course, we all have our problems with Newsom. Mm-hmm. But the thing is,
with
his handling of COVID, I feel like he's been pretty good with it.
Yeah.
I mean, especially recently, I think
DeSantis.
Recently he just signed in. DeSantis, don't worry, there'll be a massive hit piece coming on.
We were
soon.
Debating we have two governors in the crosshairs for a shame, but we'll come for DeSantis another time.
But we're really gonna research DeSantis, and we're gonna give you. So it might honestly be a majority of the podcast us shitting on DeSantis.
A series of political maneuverings.
We might just have to do that.
Letting people die for his political maneuverings and his
it's really
political
disgusting.
goals.
Anyway, but that's for next week.
Crosshairs on you, DeSantis.
Unless something really out of the pocket happens, we're gonna shame DeSantis.
Take him
Trust
down.
Me, a big ass.
Right now we got
piece.
Cuomo.
We got Cuomo.
But he's using the same excuse right now that it's a political hit piece, as a political attack. Part of his excuse in his apology is more of an excuse, is that everything's become so political, and
he's trying to play on the cancel culture bullshit.
The lines between like what's appropriate and what's not has been pushed so far over that you can't do anything. He's basically like using that excuse that the times have become so sensitive to everything that now it's coming for my political career.
Yeah. So, one of the things that really bothered me about Cuomo, where I almost wanted to write about him before, first off, there's the allegations of misusing public resources. Mm-hmm. I'll give you examples. First off, with the resources of writing his book, which is, I'm going to paraphrase here, but it's like, Andrew Cuomo and how I defeated COVID in New York. Right? And remember, like, he was, like, selling these posters about how they got over the peak in New York, and, and he won a fucking Emmy for his updates, his press briefings about COVID. He won a fucking Emmy because Donald Trump was so bad.
Yeah.
Because of how bad Donald Trump was. And honestly, and now seeing the way he's handled allegations, you can kind of see actually how Cuomo is kind of a Trump of the left.
Yeah.
You can kind of see, and especially the way that these allegations have been playing out, you can see that the way he's dismissed him is very Trump-esque.
I'd hesitate to call him a leftist too, but
I'm saying Trump of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Let's just say.
Better.
You're right, not of the left. Because actually, part of the reason why he stepped down is because the New York General Assembly, which is, I think, actually going farther to the left of Cuomo, right? And apparently the way Cuomo had played politics was very, like, singular. He wasn't trying to make many friends, and that's why no one's was really willing to stick up to him after all these allegations.
But he also, one of the things that came out after everybody was praising him for his COVID response, one of the things that came out, that he, basically hid nursing home numbers, COVID
something we'll shit on DeSantis for. And, we'll shit on DeSantis for playing with the numbers.
Put it all under the rug.
Yeah, and you look at the fine details, and Cuomo had taken money from the nursing home industry. So that was a really bad one. That was one.
The ineptitude and irresponsibility of leadership during the pandemic has been jarring.
It really has. It really has. And Cuomo especially, there was also the fact that before tests were very, were more easily to get, like they are now. in the beginning, you remember like when you were like, "Oh, I want to get tested," but you're like, how the fuck do you even get it?
I wasn't able to get a test because like I wanted to go visit my grandmother, my nana, and I wasn't able to get a test till like I don't think I had my first COVID test till like September or October of 2020.
Yeah, and
they wouldn't let you go get tested for a minute.
Right. And so what Cuomo was doing is apparently he was misappropriating resources like testing kits for his own family, including something we have to bring up, his relationship with his brother, Chris Cuomo, who's a prominent CNN host.
Yeah.
Actually, he's the highest rated CNN host.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, because a lot of people like
They're
him.
a political family.
His father was the mayor. The governor. Yeah, you're right.
York,
yeah. And, dude, just a side note. Have you ever seen clips of Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York? That guy is, dude, you gotta look it up. That guy is a buffoon he's just like a big dummy. But anyway.
You want to go back to the days of Bloomberg?
No, definitely not. So his relationship with his brother, because there's been a lot of, that they talked about it, all right? Like, just take whatever, evidence there is, throw it out. Just on a familial level, if they're on good basis, and especially since his brother is one of the most popular mouthpieces on the biggest mainstream media network, one of the biggest, CNN, and they had to have talked about it.
Talked about what?
Just how to deal with the allegations, and that's what a lot of the accusations are. Is that Chris,
prior to these allegations, during his COVID response, he was even like somewhat teasing presidential run. Obviously, that's not happening now, but
no, he was, and a lot of people were supporting that because no one really had faith in Biden.
A lot of these governors that have taken a little bit of a spotlight. When we talk about them next week too, that'll be a big point. But a lot of these governors that have taken a spotlight.
Expect some Ron DeSantis run to happen in 2024. That's
exactly. They've all been like, "Ooh, I got a little bit of attention on me. This is nice. Oh, maybe president."
You know what's interesting though? Just really quickly to DeSantis. I heard David Pakman talk about this, and I thought this was interesting. He was talking about the possibility of a Trump DeSantis ticket in 2024. I know. Right. Well, because someone's like, what would be who would be like the best possible option from the conservatives? And he was saying, I guess Mitt Romney.
Oh.
But that's like, I guess, I think Liz Cheney might even take a run because she was touted as a resistance hero.
Yeah, no, they're not gonna. They won't get enough support because the Republican Party's still dominated by Trump.
So, but one of the interesting thing I thought about that is expect Trump to try to kiss and make up with Pence, because Trump needs a beta in that, to use the terminology beta. Trump needs a beta as like someone more submissive in the vice presidential role, and I think people see DeSantis as too much of an alpha.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and using that shitty
term, fighting each other over the spotlight.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's an attention thing.
So anyway, again, my God, it's almost like we're doing one on DeSantis right now. That's how much hatred we have
for priming it.
Yeah, we're priming you. We're just getting it ready. But
or future weeks, whatever.
No, we're doing it next week. Next week, we're doing it. We've committed at this point. But
stay tuned.
Stay tuned. But with Cuomo, it's just a clear case of abusing someone's role. I mean, the guy even so much. I told you thought this one was. Well, not funny, but it's like, why would you even bring this up? I mentioned to you the other day, was the one where he talked to the state trooper, and he was like, why are you getting married? It's gonna ruin your sex drive, and I bet you have a wonderful sex drive.
That's so weird.
It's so
someone
weird.
On a security detail.
Yeah, another thing he said apparently was...
Wasn't he like rubbing her from behind?
Yes, he was like he was rubbing the small of her back, like dry.
So
you remember?
Creepy.
Yeah, dude, it's so weird. And like
if this was somebody's uncle, you'd be like, that guy's a suspect.
Yeah, no, for sure. Keep
an eye on that guy.
Yeah, keep an eye on that guy. So yeah, basically, there isn't much to say. The allegations against him are serious, but
he's trying to chalk it up, use excuses like a political
I'm Italian.
Cancel culture's coming for him. The lines between what's okay and what's not have been ruined in this generation. And,
but in all reality,
and everybody's too sensitive. Yeah. It's just more of that bullshit. More of those excuses. It's like, dude, you fucked up. And you're creepy. You molested some people.
And he
take
fucking
your legs.
Reached under a girl's dress and grabbed her titties. That is fucking straight on assault.
It would look a lot better. I mean, there's no way to come out of this with him looking good, but he should have just cut the excuses, cut that weird speech about loving New York and being a New York fighter and trying to pander to the New York spirit or the Italian spirit or whatever nonsense he's trying to pull out of his ass to shield himself from these allegations.
Yeah.
If he just said, "Yep, I got weird. I fucked up. I'm sorry. I'm stepping down." That would be way more graceful than sitting there trying to be all serious.
Well, he tried to
try and come up with all these excuses and
tried to pull
these fucking weird sad tunes about his getting a political hit or whatever.
He tried to pull a Jordan Belfort straight out of Wolf of Wall Street. We ain't going nowhere. That fucking shit. Yeah. And what I was bringing up, Zach, prior to you this about this prior to this is about how it's when could he, if there wasn't the support to overthrow him, could he have tried to just deny this and stay in power? If there wasn't the overwhelming support of, because like you said,
to try and sweep it under the rug and just deny and stick to those guns and just try and maintain his role as governor. Yeah. I mean, he could have, but even after he left office, I still think it would have done the damage. It would have.
He would have been fucked.
Any other aspirations he would have had after that would have been gone.
No, totally. Totally. And, I don't know. I just find it very interesting. And let's give a shout out to the Attorney General, Letitia James. She's coming for everybody's neck. She's the same person who was trying to go after Donald Trump for his taxes. So yeah, she's doing some good shit in New York.
There's something to be said about people in high political positions of power, because a lot of times either party will hear about this and they'll spin it as, see what Democrats do.
Fox News is already all over this, even when Trump has had a slew of fucking allegations himself.
It's not exclusive to either party. It's something more about having political power, being in a position of power. I think that makes you feel untouchable, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of party affiliation. I think it leads, especially men in these positions, to feel untouchable, to feel powerful, and to feel like people will kind of submit themselves to them in any way that they please. Because you've seen it. Creepy stuff. Politicians of all colors and beliefs have all done creepy, molesting things over the years and over the decades. So there's just something to be said about these guys in high positions of power. They need to not just when you're in a position like that, you need to be a leader and you be a rock, and you can't be a creep. You can't be a weirdo and a molester. You got to be professional. You got to treat people with respect and dignity, from whether it be your left
assistant,
your assistant, your lieutenant general, down to your security detail, down to just people that work at your estate, because that was the accusation about the woman that said she that was at his estate, where she said that he was closed the room and the door on her and started reaching up her skirt or something, and that was in his estate. So it's just it's a form of corruption, really. It's a form of corruption. That people in power get this, power, this kick, and they feel like they can make sexual advances willy-nilly without consequence. Right. And consequences have clearly come for Cuomo here, and he's trying to cover his ass. It's not working. We see right through it.
Shame on you.
Fuck you. Shame on you, Cuomo.
Shame on you. All right.
Goodbye.
Your
political career
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Slam the door shut.
Yeah.
Right in Cuomo's face.
I might even just cut it a Trump bye-bye right there. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Look forward to not hearing about Andrew Cuomo after the dust settles here. We won't have to hear about him anymore.
What do you think is going to happen to Chris Cuomo?
I mean, look, if provided he hasn't done anything creepy, it shouldn't really be on him. If I mean, there'll always be the question, I think, in people's minds, like, was he aware of this? Did he know
Yeah.
about it? So it'll really come down to that. How much was he aware of it? How much did he know about it? Of course, probably being in the position he is, he'll be like, I had no idea. I didn't know anything. He'll probably maybe, stand by his brother. He won't want to look like a weasel of any kind. So he'll probably be like, I stand by my brother. I believe him, but what he does in his private life, I'm not aware.
Well,
I'm not privy to everything. I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah.
But
well, just bringing it back real quick, and we're gonna wrap this up, I swear.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the nursing home death scandal.
Yeah.
At that time, Chris Cuomo and Andrew Cuomo, I think you may have seen this, when they were talking about like COVID tests, and then Chris Cuomo brings out a huge giant cotton swab, and he's like, "Yeah, this is the kind of cotton swab you need for your nose because it's so big." Oh, got him! And they're making these like cutesy little jokes on CNN.
and it's like, hey guys, people are dying.
yeah. Can we be fucking serious? All right. We have fucking Trump over here telling us that we should inject bleach. Can we have some fucking serious?
Oh, I did that.
Oh yeah, of course. It worked. Yeah, I'm immune. All right, Zach, what do you got for us this week?
All right. So not really connected to anything we talked about this week, but I feel like it plays on our ending discussion we had last week about dreams and reality shifting, and I kind of wanted to continue down that subject a little bit, but this time it's something a little bit more interesting, something I've seen online in the past few years. It's more of a paranormal mystery. It refers to this thing people refer to as the Backrooms. And yeah.
I mean, you know what image comes to head is like that infamous like corpse husband story about being a hacker and then getting into the back room online and seeing like a murder show.
Yeah, so the Backrooms is an interesting one. I first saw this arise on 4chan's export a few years ago. Pull up a picture just so you can get an idea of what it looks like. Just type in Backrooms and go images. And basically, it's like this yellow... the famous picture is like this weird yellow, completely empty room that was posted in... It's very unsettling. It's a very unsettling image.
I don't know why. This is very creepy.
The website...
It's very David Lynch-esque.
Yeah, it does
it's
have
very
like...
David
it's
Lynch-esque.
a very unsettling image in a weird way. It was... The website Know Your Meme claims that this was originally posted in April of 2018, although I swear I was seeing it earlier than then, but maybe I'm just getting my time frame mixed up.
Know your meme, dude.
And they claimed that it was originally posted in April of 2018 in an X thread about cursed images. Cursed images are pretty popular.
X is a paranormal board, right?
Yeah, and and that it was posted under these cursed images as like an unsettling image of some kind, and that was supposed to be a cursed room of some kind. So, and it didn't arise, although I swear I was reading about this in before May of 2019, but maybe not. So where the lore starts with the Backrooms is in a 2019 thread on X that a thread began asking for images that feel off, and this is where the Backrooms legend was born. This image, the one that you saw, is posted, and it's posted along with this quote. If you're not careful and you clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the Backrooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you. So, that is considered the post that started the Backrooms legend. So this, I believe, is a form, it's a form of reality shifting or dimension shifting, the way it's presented, that you basically fall out of this reality, you fall out of this dimension or this universe, and you end up in some almost limbo type space, and that it happens to be this this room. And weirdly enough, it feels like it's kind of inspired by like in a video game or computer game you're playing, and you kind of clip out of the map. The term clipping is used a lot in this as a stand-in for shifting, you know.
Okay, yeah.
And like, you know, you're playing a video game and you kind of clip out of the map.
Oh, I always love it when
weird...
that happens, or like when you fall through the map and you fall down and you see it from like a zoomed out perspective,
and you end up in this weird space. So the idea here is that you clipped out of reality. You clipped out of reality, or in other words, shifted into another dimension or universe that happens to be the Backrooms, which is a void-like space that's completely empty and completely eerie, and it seems impossible to escape. So you're like trapped there, wandering around, and you know, so it supposedly exists out of reality and is somewhere, like I said, almost like a purgatory or limbo-like place somewhere outside of this reality that you've shifted into. Although it's more nightmarish than the reality shifting that the people on TikTok. It's not, you know, as fun as going into your favorite, you know, animated world. It's more you're shifted into some place you don't want to be, that you didn't intend to go to, and you're trapped there. And, you know, some things in this, I've seen a lot of discussions about this. Like, there is, like, a lot of lore built around this about, like, various creatures that live in here. I prefer it to be completely empty. I feel like that's creepier. Mm-hmm. I feel like having other things in there hunting you and stuff, sure, that's a little creepy, but I feel like what makes the Backroom so eerie and so creepy is its nothingness. That it's completely empty, and you're there trapped alone in this maze of, you know, weird, moist, the stench of mildew and these weird, off-putting yellow colors, you know.
You know, it's funny, that reminds me of this game Control that I played, where, like, a lot of it is set in, like, just, like, a regular, building where, like, it's, like, some, like, you can see it as some governmental building, but it's like constantly shifting, and there's like a lot of these rooms where they're kind of like that. They're just like weird and generic, but there's like an eeriness to it because it's so generic and empty, you know?
Yeah, that's kind of like where the unsettling nature of this, I feel like, comes from. So like a lot of times the Backrooms are presented as, like I said, this plain yellow vacant office complex of loops and twists. It's almost like you're stuck in an endless maze, and double backs, and you're just constantly wandering around trapped in this like empty large office of some kind, you know. And although I've seen that there also are different styles of the Backrooms. There's a more industrial style that's not as popular, that's more made of like concrete and steel and more industrial like than it is like office like. An interesting thing I read about, while reading about the Backrooms, is that it's an example of what you might call an eldritch location. Eldritch refers to an idea in Lovecraftian literature of like an otherworldly place, or go ahead.
I'm sorry, real quick. I'm looking at images, and I saw someone named Danny Stoner. God heavens, I wish I lived in the Backroom. Comfy carpet that lets you walk barefoot or with socks. Yellowed green rooms with 90s style wallpaper. You had light that lets you to do important things when needed. Without unnecessary furniture, less is more. You're alone.
This stuff, like the Backrooms, became like pretty popular for about the span of a year. A couple of years ago, I would see a thread about it every time I went to the X board, and like there's plenty of memes made about it and stuff in different versions. And yeah, there's different images. I'll get into that. There's different forms of it too. I'll get into that in a minute.
Is this like the one you're talking about that's more industrial?
Yeah, what you're seeing there, part of what, I guess I'll explain it now. Part of what people consider the Backrooms to be is this idea of liminal spaces. Okay. Which is like kind of just places that once like abandoned. Think of like an abandoned mall. Okay. You're in an empty abandoned mall. That's a liminal space.
Dude, one of the creepiest things I've been in, and I still am kind of like, I still very eerie when I think about it. But when I was in Greece, I was in this small village, and we went to this supermarket, right? And it was so weird. It was like, it felt like there was like only a couple people working there. No one else was in there. No one was in the parking lot. and all the food on the shelves, there was only one like layer of food on the shelves. So just like imagine one like box stretched out a lot, and it was super weird. Like a lot of it was expired. And I don't know. I remember just this. It left a very heavy psychic resonance on me that it was like a very eerie thing to see.
Yeah, there's something about like something that feels like it was built for a lot of activity and a lot of people and a lot of things that then is abandoned. Be it an office space that the Backrooms are, or a supermarket that feels like it's out of time almost. Here, when San Jose Skate was recently demolished a few weeks ago here in San Jose, I found a picture online of what it looked like completely empty. And I think that's a good example. I posted it on my Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter, that's the Heartbreak Kid. But see that image of it where it's like completely empty, but it looks like it was built for like so much more, and it should be filled with people in life. It's
the
kind of
absence of people is what makes it very eerie.
Yeah, and it's like I said, what is referred to as a liminal space, and like somehow like it evokes this feeling of just unsettling, and like I said, it's. Some people have kind of attribute these to eldritch locations, which is a place which doesn't agree with the laws of physics or how we understand the real world, So it's just kind of this place that's out of time and out of the world that you're placed into, that leaves this daunting, dreary, ominous feel hanging over.
What's an eldritch location?
Eldritch is this word that is taken from Lovecraftian literature that refers to something that's other dimensional or outside of our comprehension.
Okay.
So like Cthulhu is an eldritch being.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just curious.
So here's some theories about why in the Backrooms lore, why the Backrooms might exist or what they are. So obviously the first one we have to start is that this is a government project. There's a little bit too much going on there in that one.
Okay.
So I think a little bit more empty in the Backrooms.
Sorry.
So obviously the first theory is about the government, that this is a project created and controlled by the government, CIA, whoever it might be, to test
Black Hawk helicopters,
to test quantum tunneling technology, or to test quantum shifting, or reality shifting, or perhaps some form of like teleportation technology that they work on, and that they use subjects, unwitting subjects, or involuntary subjects, and place them in the Backrooms to see how people respond to being quantum shifted or being reality shifted or being put into, this location that is familiar but also otherworldly. Because something about the Backrooms is familiar, but not so much also. It's like you've been there, but you haven't, So that brings me to another theory about what these exist. Because in the early posts I would see of these, people were always like, who has dreamt about being still lost in the Backrooms? So a big idea is that Backrooms only exist in the mind, that they're a product of imagination and the mind, and that you can become trapped there in a dream that never ends and becomes a nightmare, becomes a never-ending, repetitive
sounds
nightmare.
like a nightmare.
And that people stuck in comas could perhaps be trapped in some form of a backroom deep in their mind, Or think of it like almost like the Sunken Place too, where it's like you're trapped in your mind in a dream state in the backroom. So like I said, early renditions of these posts I would see online where it would talk about it in a dreamlike state. Like you're in a dreamlike state and you get transported. You reality shift in your dream, you quantum shift, and you get transported to the Backrooms. There's one more theory that or there's a couple more. One more. This one I think is pretty interesting. This is called the collision theory.
Okay.
It basically states that the Backrooms could be a spot where our universe, in the multiverse theory, where our universe has collided with another universe and formed, and this is the boundaries of universes meeting together and creating this weird out of both universes, like somewhere in the middle between them as they collide. And people actually support this theory with this place called the cold spot that exists in our universe that is like considered like a void out in deep space, outside of our galaxy, where there's like this cold spot where, it's kind of like just unusually empty, for space even. And that people theorize that perhaps this is where another universe is colliding with ours, and that there is some entrance into the backrooms in that cold spot. Weirdly enough, that one I felt like was almost reading about that, approaching the backrooms from that angle of it as like a place between universes as they collide. It kind of made me think of at the end of Interstellar when
the bookshelf.
Yeah, when Matt Damon like falls into the black hole gargantuan. And he's like in this like weird
Matthew McConaughey, but Matt Damon is in it.
Matt Damon is in it. Yeah, but Matthew McConaughey falls in, and he's like in this weird like room. I had a name. It was like called like I don't remember. And he was like in this weird room in the black hole where he was like, there was stuff around, but it was like so weirdly empty. And that's where he controlled the bookshelf from.
Right.
Was inside there, and that's kind of what I thought about when reading about the backrooms as like a version of like a shifting into a multiverse or a boundary between the multiverse, So the final theory here, too, is the playground/dev room theory. So this is connected to something that I think is also co-opted a lot by a lot of reality shifting fans and quantum shifting fans, and that's this idea that the world is a simulation. The simulation theory has been popular.
Simulation theory.
It's been popular in recent years, and so the idea is if the world and reality is a simulation, that the backrooms exist as a type of developer room or a playground room within the outside of the simulation, but like kind of like how a developer room would exist in a computer game.
Right.
If reality is a simulation and exists somewhere in a computer, that there is this room that the developers of the simulation use to test things, and that is what the backrooms are, and that someone in the simulation could theoretically clip out of the main processing of the simulation and clip into the backrooms where the controllers, the great elder beings that dictate the simulation,
elder beings
that dictate the simulation might have in order to test their programs and test things before they implement it into the greater.
They're not friendly.
Into the greater simulation. So I wanted to bring this up when you were talking about the place in Greece you visited. So because I wanted to discuss ideas on why this is like such a popular theory. I wanted to bring up something. Remember when we went to downtown just a couple months ago and we like parked near the convention center, and then we were trying to find like an exit. We parked in like the convention center's parking lot.
Yeah.
And we were like trying to find an exit. We like opened a door and we went into the convention center, but it was like there's like nothing in there, like no people, nothing around, and it was just empty. And I was like trying to explain to him, like, have you heard of the backrooms before? I think I brought it up, and I'm like, this place feels right now like we're lost in the backrooms, because we're like walking around the hallways. It's completely empty. Nobody's in there. Nothing's around. No signs. Like there's no event happening at the convention center, and it's COVID, so the place has been shut down for a while. It hadn't.
There hasn't been a convention in a while.
And so like we were like kind of like. That was like a liminal space when we were walking through. I mean, eventually we did find the way out. It was, not that hard.
No, but I remember. I remember we were, and also the parking lot weirdly was kind of empty as well.
Yeah, it's like places like that. So I have a list. Someone posted this. I thought it was interesting of places where reality is a bit other. Similar examples to the backrooms, places where reality is a bit altered or things are unsettling.
Middle of the forest.
So here's a list of them. Any Target, I'm assuming the store.
Any Target,
yeah.
Okay.
An empty church, especially like a mega church.
Yeah. I could totally see that.
Abandoned convenience stores or gas stations.
I can kind of see that.
Hospitals at midnight.
Fucking
or
yes.
Late, 1 a.m.
Yes.
A warehouse that nobody else is working in, or like a big storage room.
Ooh, that just gives me the chills.
That nobody's working in, that just is like so quiet, and like you can feel the dust rise when you enter. empty parking lots. You mentioned the parking garage. I feel like is a better example. Ponds and lakes in suburban neighborhoods. Dark cabinets, dark rooms, playgrounds at night. Rest stops on rest stops that aren't frequented on highways.
I could definitely see that.
Trails by the highway, but that are just out of earshot of traffic.
Yeah, no. Okay, wait, real quick. So what I've been doing on my drive, whenever I do drive to LA, I do what our buddy Patrick, shout out to Patrick, what he likes to do is just like you pull off on the side of the road, you look for like one of the little overpasses, and you can pull off on the side of the road, just take a piss, and then get right back onto the freeway. And there's a weird feeling about these areas where it almost feels like these areas exist for traveling. And no, like, who's gonna go off of just some random stretch off of the 5? You know what I mean? It might as well be kind of like a weird, and passing through that late at night, I've gotten that weird eerie feeling before, like being in that area, especially if there's not a lot of cars.
It's
on
like
there.
the combination of emptiness and like loneliness. That gives it this real eerie, unsettling vibe.
I was just gonna say one also where I don't know what happened still to this day, but. This is going to be a little bit of a story if you don't mind. But my aunt, rest in peace, she was a recovering addict, right? And she got really into being a witch, being Wicca, not like
paganism practice.
Yeah, not like the right-wing conservative witches you'll see nowadays, but like more so the more like lefty, free,
unpolitically
affiliated. Honestly, I never thought witchcraft would be politically charged, but anyway, so
most of the time it isn't.
So I remember she pulled me out of school this one time and didn't tell my mom, and she took me into the middle of the floor.
You were a child.
I was a child, and I was living in Pacifica at the time. I was in kindergarten, or pre-K. I was in like a pre-kindergarten, and I was we're in Pacifica. We go into the middle of the forest. Then she makes some kind of like circle, and I don't know what she was doing. She was like kind of just like went into a trance. And then I just remember like just being alone in the middle of the woods, and she had found like, a fairy circle, which is, a fey circle. And she did like she did a bunch of stuff, and my mom was freaked out because she's like, oh yeah, your son was checked out of daycare, and but I still to this day think about that, and I've had very weird spiritual occurrences with that aunt in particular, and that's probably like one of the strongest ones, and it felt like the world did not pay, like it almost felt like
you were
I was
in a place at a time or something.
Exactly, that like I've only had certain moments like that, and that was one of them, and I for sure felt something akin to that, and that still sticks with me to this day. Yeah. I could even imagine where you used to go to school at UC Santa Cruz, walking around the campus late at night, being there's definitely a lot of eerie energy around there.
Walking the grounds at UCSC late at night, especially like post midnight when there's like nobody else around, like it definitely was. It did happen, like it's half in the forest. It definitely had like this weird eerie vibe. Another thing I see listed here is schools and empty classrooms during summer breaks and breaks when nobody else is in there. You ever walk into a building on a college campus, or back in high school you have to go to campus for some reason during the summer if you're in trouble, and and you go into a classroom or a building and there's like nobody in there, and like usually the school's filled with life and people and so much going on, and then it's so eerily quiet and empty and like nothing going on. And
I actually have a kind of a theory about that. I think it's something that you brought up, and I think it's something that you might possibly believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you talked about when you used to work on campus, and that you would do repairs to the apartments, and that you felt like that there was like a stress resonance within the walls that you could feel. That was like very
and I would feel that very strongly. So
like imagine, just to extrapolate it. you think about these very busy areas, right? These areas that are full of life, that leaves a certain spiritual resonance. I don't know if, depending on an energy resonance that when it's absent of life, there's still like that resonance there. And I think that's what kind of makes you feel like out of place. Now, when you kind of go into like the forest, and that's like very different, the forest feels like more so just like a place that's just absent of everything. You know what I mean? Like, especially if there's no one around. But especially in these places like you're describing, that's what my theory is listening to this, is that it's that there's a resonance left behind from all the people that would frequent it, would be there, and that with the absent of it, there's kind of like a leftover energy of all those people visiting.
Exactly, like what you were saying about being in the apartments and the dorms working is usually when I was alone. If I was working with somebody else, I never experienced this. But like, let's say I'm like working in an apartment or a dorm, and I'm doing something in there. I got my headphones in, I'm plugged in, I'm working, and then like I stop to take a break, and I just sit there in silence, and I would be awash with this like weird, eerie feeling where I'm like, usually dorms in college, on campus housing, like there's so much action going on there, whether it's people stressing over homework or all the other stresses and energy that college life brings, and when you're there and it's completely empty, completely devoid of what is usually a very lively place, and I would just sit back and like I could feel like this weird energy pressing down on me from like the walls themselves, whether it was the stress of the students or the excitement of it, and and all kinds of things. Like I would just like kind of sit there in a minute and just kind of like soak it in, and then like I would snap out of it real quick. I have another example too of experiencing this weird eeriness. It was when I was taking a flight from Phoenix to San Jose. When I was younger.
Oh, you just reminded me of one. Go on.
And I was like 18 at the time, and I showed up at the airport at the wrong day, but I had to get a ride from Flagstaff. So like I didn't know anybody in Phoenix at the time really that I could have reached out to. My flight was the next day. I arrived a day earlier. I thought my flight was on a certain day. Anyways, so I'm in the airport all night, all day, all night, waiting for my flight the next day, the next morning, and I'm sitting there, and like the airport's pretty busy up until like about 1 or 2 a.m. It's completely cleared out and empty. And I couldn't sleep. It was very hard to sleep in an airport. And so I'm like walking around, and it was like so eerily quiet and empty. In an airport, it's usually so much traffic, so much busyness and energy and people passing through. And then to just be in there and feel like all that weird, usually life kind of just and energy kind of just settling down, and walking through this airport empty, everything closed up, barely anybody around. I just saw like a guy off in the distance with one of those big vacuums just vacuuming the hallway.
Or the big buffers.
And like me and him make weird eye contact, and he's like, "You feel it too, huh?" And I'm just like walking around, such an eerie experience. Sky Harbor, weird place after dark.
I have an airport one too, and it was when I was in my trip, the same trip I went to Greece. When we were leaving Greece, we had to take a layover in Izmir, Turkey. And I remembered that the airport was half full. Like, not half full, but like large portions of it were shut down and almost looked like they hadn't been in use in a long time. Right? So it wasn't just that it was empty. It's that a part of it was shut down. And maybe it was also just the fact of like being abroad in a country where you're just like, I don't know, I mean, we literally traveled to the Istanbul airport right after there was like a bombing there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought you guys were in Ankara.
No. Izmir.
Izmir.
Yeah. That was the spot, and that was where when we entered randomly, they made us buy a visa because we had to exit to get into the airport.
Yeah, to go to another terminal.
Yeah, and so it just seemed like a way for that. But like, I just remember being in that airport and that there wasn't many people in there, and it was large. When you look down and you see how large this airport is, and there's like levels. Completely shut. It's eerie as fuck, dude. It's eerie.
Damn.
The absence of people in large structures is fucking eerie.
Yeah. No. So, in my ideas on the origins of the Backrooms, I think that what we were just discussing is exactly why this resonated with so many people online and became like kind of this thing online that people built upon. It wasn't just one author that made this story. I mean, like obviously the original post sparked something, but the image of itself of the yellow room, I think that sense of familiarity, but also like like strangeness and unfamiliarity combined with that. Like I think we've all experienced the vibe, the energy, and the weird emptiness and loneliness of the back rooms. The idea that the back rooms convey in various places, as we just talked about, airports, schools, whatever it might be. So I think that this was just an interesting little something people like caught up, like it was expressing something that we've all felt. Like another one I was gonna say was empty malls, abandoned malls. Valco Mall, when I worked at Valco Mall back in 2014, and there's only like 4 stores. It's a dead mall. It's an entire dead mall, and there's only like 4 stores in the entire place. And it was completely empty. And when I would take my breaks and walk around in there, I would just feel like so creeped out by it. Mm-hmm. And it was so much so that when I was taking poetry classes in school, a few years later, I wrote a poem about it, about the eeriness of it. And it was actually one of the ones I'm most proud of. Wow. But so it's definitely one of those feelings and vibes we've all experienced someplace that was like meant or once had so much life and so much traffic and so much energy, now abandoned and empty and void like, and it just strikes you with this very strange, eerie, unsettling familiarity yet strangeness. So I think that's where the Backroom sparked from. I also had a little bit of another theory about it, in that I think it's also connected to the popularity of like the simulation theory these days, or reality shifting, or people co-opting ideas about like being in a certain timeline. I'm sure you've heard that that statement before, like, oh, this is the weirdest timeline, this is the darkest timeline. So I feel like there's like a weird idea right now in the popular zeitgeist of like multiple dimensions and multiple realities. Like, if you think about this from a literary standpoint, like, you've ever heard the idea of like the literary conflicts, like back in the day, it is based on a time and place. Like, so way back in the day, literary conflicts surrounded man versus nature, man versus God. And then more modern, I'm talking like 20th century, turn of 20th century, is like man versus society, or man versus himself. But now in like the postmodern world we live in, it's more of like we have definitely a man versus reality type thing going on in the popular zeitgeist, that I feel like that we're waging
spiritual warfare,
and the Backrooms like tap into this weird anxiety and weird interest people have, I think, in like whether questioning reality. Is our existence a simulation theory? Is simulation? I don't think it is, but it's a popular theory and people like to discuss that one. Reality shifting, as we talked about last week, is popular. So I just think it tapped into both a feeling that everybody's experienced before, and connected it with like these ideas of like being in another world, or being in another reality, or shifting out of our universe into some other dimension or universe that feels familiar but isn't. And I found it, when I would read about this online a few years ago, I found it to be a very interesting topic, and I've experienced the eerie vibe of the Backrooms myself, and like you have had your now talking about it, you've voiced your own experiences in feeling that weird and settled anxiety that comes with being in a so familiar yet empty and devoid of life place that should be bustling but isn't. So are the Backrooms a real place? No. Do I think the universe is a simulation? Maybe it might be cool to do a more in-depth simulation theory in the future, but I don't subscribe to that theory myself. But it is something fun to contemplate, and it is something that's very popular, I think, these days. This idea of like being like, oh, what timeline are we in? What reality are we living in? What is the nature of this universe? And are there other universes and other dimensions? And and like I said, just mixing it in with the creepy eeriness of empty places, empty huge buildings, like just tapped into something really cool and really fascinating. That's why I think the Backrooms are dope, even though the Backrooms have kind of, in all honesty, fallen out of the popular conversation online. I don't see them brought up too much on X anymore. Maybe every now and then. The memes about them that I saw at their peak have died out, but it's still a fun thing to look into.
Yeah.
People built a ton of lore and stuff about it, which I feel like kind of kills it. Like they kind of make it a little too much SCP-esque, where they try and add multiple layers and give this whole backstory and creatures and stuff. I prefer to keep it in its most pure form, empty and devoid, but yet it should be full of life and people and traffic and bustling, but it's not. And it's familiar in many ways, but it's also so very alien in others.
Just like my love life.
So that's the Backrooms for you, baby.
Yeah, creepy. Man, that was a banger.
You like that one?
I like that one a lot.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Well,
think about your own versions of Backrooms you've experienced in your lives, and if you want to leave a comment on whatever you're listening to this on, and tell us where you've experienced the vibe of the
send
Backrooms.
it to bashbrospod@protonmail.com. Again, that's bashbrospod@protonmail.com.
Or just leave it in a comment,
Yeah, leave it on a comment on our YouTube channel.
If you have an example of of experiencing the Backrooms, whether it's from a dream or in real life experiencing what we described, we'd love to hear that.
Yep. Yeah, man. All right, well, that's gonna do it for us this week. Question your reality.
Hell yeah, that's been our jam the past couple of weeks.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah.
Reality shifting.
Yeah. My God, what's real? All right. We'll catch you next time. We're out of here. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.